Oh, Dan, it's harder to find a player that is more valuable to his team than Daniel Murphy is for the Nationals. And it's not even just that he can hit. It's the fact that he is one of the best in baseball in so many categories. You look at his batting average and what he's been able to bring. Then the power numbers this season. At the end of last year, he leads the National League in slugging. And this is number one to me. Second lowest in the National League with that strikeout percentage. So hard to find a player that can slug, batting average, and does not strike out. And oh, by the way, let's just kick it up a notch against his former team, the Mets. It's been 56 years since a player has hit more RBIs against his former team in that first year than Daniel Murphy has done against the Mets.
And he is definitely a serious candidate for National League MVP, but he had an interesting route to even becoming a Washington National. For more on that, here's Buster Olney.
Yeah, Dan, Murphy is almost an accidental National. As Washington was looking for a second baseman last winter, they spoke with free agent Ben Zobrist. That didn't work out. Then Washington got deep into trade talks with Cincinnati for Brandon Phillips, and as Phillips used his veto power to end any chance of a deal to the Nationals, they worked out a 3-year deal with Murphy, and I think that we can say this has worked out pretty well for Washington. As you say, he is among the front runners for the National League Most Valuable Player Award, along with Chris Bryant of the Cubs, Corey Seager of the Dodgers. Dan?
About as tough an out as there has been in baseball this year. He now makes his baseball home in the nation's capital, and there's no denying it has been a monumental season for Daniel Murphy thus far. The Nats and the Mets coming up. ESPN is presented by Taco Bell's new Cheesy Core Burritos, and in part by the all-new Audi A4. And Apartments.com. Change your apartment, change the world. back at Citi Field. A nice crowd on hand here. The Mets are in the playoff hunt. They were a game and a half back of the second wild card in the National League, and they're fired up for this game against the division-leading Washington Nationals. Let's take a look at the starting lineup for the Nationals now. It's brought to you by Taco Bell.
Well, Dan, the Nationals have scored in the first inning each of the last 5 games. Big reason why is Trey Turner at the top. His first at bat hitting over 400. He has been a niter for this team at that leadoff spot. Then you bump it down to who everyone expected to have a monster season after that NL MVP season last year. He has not until the last month. He's really kicked it in another gear since coming back from that neck injury.
On the mound for the Mets tonight, one of the guys who has done a nice job filling in. Aaron talked about some of the injuries and the holes in the rotation. Seth Lugo, 9 relief appearances and then 3 starts, and he's done a nice job in all 3 of them. Has given the Mets some innings, has given up 5 earned runs in 17 2/3 innings in his 3 starts. And again, with Harvey gone for the year, Matz has some shoulder discomfort right now. DeGrom's start is being skipped on Tuesday. Rafael Montero will make that. The guys like Montero, Lugo, and Gazelman are helping to keep the Mets in the chase right now. On the other side, meanwhile, here's a guy who has given the Nationals quite a jolt in recent weeks. Rookie Trey Turner, the National League Rookie of the Month for August. A guy who has taken over as their center fielder, even though he's a natural infielder, and their leadoff hitter. And look at his numbers since the All-Star break. Is a tremendously effective stretch for him. He has great speed, has 6 triples, has 20 steals, and has become a real force at the top of the lineup. And looks like he's 17 years old. What do you guys like about him?
I love how aggressive he is for how young he is, but also how smart. I mean, he gets a lot of fastballs, but he also sees a lot of off speed.
I think, look, he's an infielder, and the ability to go with his great speed and go out and make an impact defensively at a premium position in center, at a position of need for this club. So yeah, you've gotten the great offensive production, but the defense as well.
Former first-round pick out of North Carolina State, taken by the San Diego Padres in 2014, and was involved in a 3-way deal that was officially consummated in June of 15, because you can't get traded till a year after you were drafted. So it started December 14. He was officially placed in it publicly June of 15, and has had a great couple of months in the big leagues for the Nationals this year. And by all accounts, we talked to Dusty Baker before the game. And even though he's a natural shortstop, Dusty said, you know, they've always said, even Dusty dropped a "they" on us tonight. They've always said, if you can play short, you can play anywhere. And Trey Turner, by all accounts, looks pretty comfortable out in the outfield.
Especially because the one place I would argue that is balls hit over your head. I feel like that's why you'll see a lot of infielders when they're first in the outfield, they play deep. And Trey Turner has that ability to react to balls hit right at him over his head in a way that looks like he's played there for years.
Battling Lugo, the count of ball and 2 strikes. And a fastball just misses. You could hear Jim Wolf, the home plate umpire, saying outside.
Well, this is important for Lugo to command his fastball. He'll work both sides of the plate and perhaps barely catching that corner, but look for the curveball to be a pitch that Lugo tries to put these National hitters away with. It is his best secondary pitch, but command of that fastball to set up that curveball, critical for Lugo.
Last start was against Miami. 6 innings, 2 runs, picked up the win. Low fastball bounced fair off the glove of Reyes, and safely across is Turner.
Well, this is a difficult chance for Reyes, but another factor where speed comes in. Yes, it's a difficult play, but you also realize that you've got an absolute burner down the line, so you know you've got to be efficient, you've got to be quick. I would have liked to have seen Reyes gain ground on this so that he could have gotten to that shortstop. He was a little more lateral, turned into an in-between, more of a do-or-die play.
And scored an infield hit for Turner, but now they've got to respect his speed. 20 steals, only been caught 3 times. Lugo from the stretch as Jason Worth steps in for the Nationals. Worth hitting .251, 20 homers on the season, one of 5 Washington hitters with at least 20 home runs on the year. And back at the beginning of the season, Worth was hitting down in the order, was hitting 5th. Anthony Rendon was hitting 2nd. Dusty Baker flipped them, and it really seemed to help both of them.
And this is where Trey Turner, obviously with the blinding speed, you talk about 20 stolen bases already. I think one thing that's been a big help for him is Davey Lopes, the first base coach, who has a reputation for being just great at reading pitchers' moves, telling a base stealer when it's the right time to go. And then having a guy like Jason Worth hitting in that 2-hole, a guy that is going to see pitches, is not afraid to get to 2 strikes. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for Trey Turner to get that jump that he wants with a guy like Worth hitting behind him.
The Nationals 4th in the National League in offense this year, 4.8 runs per game. 9.5 up on the Mets for the division lead. Turner very active, a lot of dancing and stutter stepping over there, trying to mess with Lugo. All 3 times Turner's been caught stealing this year were close. How do we know that? All 3 he was initially called safe, and then it was overturned on replay. 20 for 23 overall. Not going, and it's strike 2 called to Worth. Some Washington fans have made the trip north for the series, maybe taking in some tennis and some baseball while they're up here. They've had a good season. Somehow, with the record and the lead they've had, they've kind of flown under the radar nationally. But this is a very talented team, very well-rounded team. 1-2, chop foul.
And right now we're seeing Lugo do a pretty good job of working quickly to home plate. Not a total slide step, but kind of a version of it. The key, though, will be commanding his pitches while doing that. Is he able to do that? Sometimes when you get a burner on first and you're trying to be quick to home plate, the one thing you can do is impact a pitch to a hitter, and to a hitter like Worth, who can hit the ball out of the ballpark if he gets a mistake.
After Worth, Daniel Murphy, the former Met. He's waiting on deck right now. Talked about him in the open, a great season and extraordinary numbers against his old team this year. And then Bryce Harper hitting behind him. And Harper's been hot lately. Obviously has not had the kind of season he had a year ago when he was the unanimous choice for National League MVP, but he's been awfully good the last 3 weeks or so. 1-2, the count remains. And drawing another throw is Turner.
Guys, in this first inning, we're seeing 2 big philosophical changes for the Nationals in 2016. They wanted to run a lot more, and they've already got 39 more steals than last year, and they wanted a lot more contact with their lineup, which is part of the reason why they signed Daniel Murphy.
Left-handed to bat, contact hitter who's developed into a power hitter. We saw it obviously during the playoffs last year. Hit 7 home runs in the postseason for the Mets. He's upped the power and the production this year, Murphy has, without becoming a big strikeout guy. Still one of the toughest to strike out. Runner does not go, and a swing and a ground ball to the left side will get through into left field, a base hit. Cabrera with kind of a limited range and a sore knee, and it's first and second, nobody out for Daniel Murphy.
The second baseman, number 20, Daniel Murphy.
I mean, the Mets fans who are booing are only booing because he's been destroying their team.
Yeah, those were cheers very early in the year when he first came back. But look at the season he's having, ranking at or near the top in all of those categories.
But Dan, to your point, what stands out to me the most about Daniel Murphy, he's added that power to his game, but he's also been able to keep what was the best asset he has as a hitter, and that's his ability to make contact. And that's a rare thing, to have the power and the rare strikeout.
Second in the National League in batting behind DJ LeMahieu of Colorado. Second toughest batter in the National League to strike out behind Joe Panik of the Giants. Second in the league in RBIs behind Nolan Arenado of the Rockies, and leads the league in slugging percentage. In the air to left. Cespedes over into foul territory. Shied away from the wall a bit, but still made a nice backhanded catch.
This is a bonus of being in your home ballpark, knowing exactly where you're at. Cespedes doesn't even take his eye off the ball. He knows where he's at compared to the wall, able to make the turn after the catch to keep himself from running into the wall after he caught the ball, and that's just the benefit of knowing where you're at in the park. You see him stretch his quad there. That's been the one iffy part about Cespedes' game, is still injured with that right quad. His ability to be explosive in the outfield, but a good catch there.
So with one down, here's Bryce Harper. Overall, 253, 23 home runs. But better lately, as you can see. He's hitting well over 300 with 19 RBIs in his last 20 games. That's since he got healthy. He missed 5 games with a neck problem, has come back and has started looking a lot like the Harper of last year. As he takes low, ball 1.
And Bryce is going to get pitched around a lot, obviously. This is one of those situations where, of course, you're always going to pitch carefully, but it's hard to pitch around him here. One out, you've got a runner on first and second. You don't want to just walk him for a very good contact RBI hitter, and Rendon hitting behind him.
Out of play off to the left. Rendon has really been on a tear. We talked about the switch in the batting order where Worth went up to second back in the spring. Rendon came down to fifth. Rendon's been hitting great in the 5 spot. Only had 1 RBI the entire month of April, hitting up in the 2 spot, but he's been much more productive down in the order and providing a little bit of protection for Harper, who, mind you, has still been intentionally walked 16 times on the season. A liner to left. Cespedes there, 2 down. So Lugo, after allowing the first 2 men to reach, has gotten Murphy and Harper. Now trying to get a Rendon to get out of the inning. Lugo, as we showed you a few minutes ago, a 34th round pick back in 2011. More than 1,000 players were taken in the draft in 2011 before Lugo was, as he faces Rendon. A very good stretch for him. 29 RBIs in his last 36 games. Looking to do some damage here with 2 men on.
And like a lot of real good RBI men and guys that are tough outs in these situations, 2 outs, runners in scoring position, Rendon very adept at using the entire field. A lot of those RBIs have come on balls where he's driven the ball the other way and back through the middle of the diamond.
Slider just outside, ball 1.
And that's the other breaking ball that Lugo will use. The curveball's his best pitch without question. The slider he'll use to just try and get in there for a strike. You saw it there at 87. But that one just off the corner, and Rendon able to lay off.
Fastball, and it got a piece of him. Ran in at the belt, and the bases are now loaded.
And that's just I think the respect factor that they have for Rendon. 1-0 pitch. He knows if he goes inside here, he's got to either locate it perfectly or get it in off the plate, because he knows Rendon wants to work the ball back through the middle of the field or the other way. You see that ball just clip the jersey. And now setting up a bases loaded situation for another National having a really nice year.
As pitching coach Dan Worthen makes his way to the mound to talk with Lugo and Rivera. A very dangerous hitter at the plate, as Aaron mentioned. Wilson Ramos having about as good a year offensively as any catcher in the game, hitting over 300 and 20 home runs on the season.
Guys, 22 pitches for Lugo so far, not one swing and miss.
Turner at third, Worth at second, and Rendon at first for Ramos, who's hitting almost .350 this year with the runners in scoring position, and as you can see, ranks at or near the top of the list in a number of significant offensive categories among catchers. And a strike of the knees. Ramos grimacing. He'll want to make sure his pitcher gets that call when he's behind the plate. The Nationals have been an extremely productive team in the first inning of ball games this year. That guy's a big reason why. They have scored at least one run in 6 straight games in the first inning, and they've scored more first inning runs this year than any team in baseball. Can they add to their totals here tonight? Same location pretty much, same result, and same displeasure shown by Ramos.
And that's that 2-seam fastball that Lugo has, and you're going to see it in the lower 90s. He's going to get a little bit more sink to it, and this is where Ramos is frustrated because it kind of drops down below the strike zone. And that's 2 now, same pitch, same spot.
Jim Wolf, known as an excellent umpire, but more of a pitcher's umpire. He will typically have a little more generous of a strike zone. We've seen it so far here with Ramos.
The 1-2. On the appeal, no swing. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
And this is a tough take by Ramos because it's the same exact height. It's just on the outside corner. Yes, it is a ball, but you got to understand that that same spot on the inside part of the plate has now been called twice.
He's got to go to that curveball at some point. He's only broken it out once this inning. A huge pitch here for Lugo.
Outside. This time it was the Mets who wanted the call. You could see the frustration from catcher Rene Rivera.
Well, it definitely catches the outside corner. It's that 2-seam fastball that not as much sink this time, but the run back to the outside corner. Rivera sticks it, but this time Lugo and the Mets don't get the call.
All the runners on the move. 3-2, chopped out in front of the plate, and stepping on the plate is Rivera to force the runner there and end the inning. An eventful inning, but the Nationals can't capitalize. Lugo has to work hard, but he gets out of it. Rivera with the gather and the step to end the inning. field. 2 hits, 3 base runners, no runs though for the Nationals in the top of the first. Here is Terry Collins' Mets lineup, brought to you by Taco Bell.
A lot of questions when they brought him back. What kind of production would they get? Jose Reyes has been outstanding, a real spark plug at the top of this lineup. Excellent since coming back off the disabled list. And what more can you say? Yoenis Cespedes, he's been that one Met that's been the one constant in this lineup all year long, having another great season in Queens for the Mets.
On the mound for the Nationals tonight, a right-hander with a big arm. And to reach 98 miles per hour, Reynaldo Lopez, who has made 5 starts over 2 different stints with the Nationals this year. You can see his last one against Baltimore did not go well at all. Both of his wins, both of his best pitch games were against Atlanta. 7 innings, 1 earned run on 2 separate occasions against the Braves. Just 22 years of age. He will face Reyes, Cabrera, and Cespedes here in the first. Reyes hitting .284. Terry Collins talks about the energy that Reyes has brought to the team. And is that Ramos already unhappy with Jim Wolf? Is this a conversation going on? Remember, Ramos was the hitter who didn't like 2 of the calls when he was at the plate, and the conversation is continuing right now.
That is definitely Jim Wolf in a very professional way saying, all right, you've said your piece enough tonight. It's going to be a short leash from here on out.
And quickly Lopez falls behind 3-0. So Ramos unhappy as a hitter and as a catcher in the early going tonight. Lopez working quickly, and there he's in with a pitch called to strike over the outside edge. 3-1. Dusty Baker with his ever-present toothpick in tow, keeping an eye on things. Outside, ball 4. This is between innings, as Ramos came out of the field and they started talking to each other even before he crouched down for Lopez's warm-up pitches. So this has been going on basically non-stop since the Ramos at bat. Here's Asdrubal Cabrera. The Mets shortstop, very hot lately. As you can see, 6 home runs in his last 9 games. Came off the DL about 3 weeks ago. Still bothered by some knee issues, but it apparently is not bugging him at the plate right now. And it seems like with the Mets, almost every day it's something. Whether it's one of the young pitchers going through something, having to have a start skipped, or something pushed back. Neil Walker, who was having a very good year for the Mets, shut down several days ago. Back surgery he's done for the year. Cabrera's sore with the knee. Cespedes has a sore quad. There's a base hit into right center. Reyes had to make sure it was going through. The Mets with 2 men on and nobody out.
But especially with Jose Reyes and Asdrubal Cabrera playing really well offensively right now. You look at this lineup right now, and for as much as it's struggled this year, there is potential there. As you can see, a running 2-seam fastball on that outer half, and Cabrera swinging a hot bat. Excellent plate coverage. Just laces that through the right side. But I've got Jay Bruce hitting 6 tonight. If he can get it rolling, when he's hot, he's an impact offensive player, and this lineup all of a sudden can be a little dynamic.
Although one issue is, without some of the injured players, Mets folks feeling Cespedes is not getting pitched to as much as he normally would be. If you had Walker behind him, or if Bruce was hot enough to hit behind him.
And that's where Jay Bruce belongs. That's why they went to go get him. They went to get him to be behind Cespedes to make sure that he would see pitches, because Cespedes is the guy. He is the one that's been constant all season long. And especially as they head down this stretch, they need someone to protect him so he can continue to hit.
Low, a ball and a strike. The Mets know the Cardinals have already won. They beat the Reds today 5-2, so St. Louis in possession of the second wild card spot in the National League. The Mets a game and a half out. They do not have any games left with the Cardinals this year. Fouled back 1-2. One issue for the Mets all season long has been delivering with runners in scoring position. They are dead last in batting average in these situations.
And that's why a hit by Granderson last night with 2 outs and the bases loaded. That's that kind of hit that can sometimes spark guys, get guys to relax, start being more comfortable in these situations.
Runners will try to advance, and they'll get there on the short, wild pitch.
That is an outstanding read by Jose Reyes. This ball does not get far at all from Wilson Ramos, but he reads the ball. It's going to be in the dirt out of his hand. Watch how quick he's on this. He's in perfect position to pounce once he sees the ball on that downward angle. Doesn't wait to see how far it kicks. He just reads that it's going to be in the dirt and trusts his speed to be able to get to third.
So second and third, nobody out, and a 2-2 count to Cespedes as he gets a piece. And this is one of the things that Terry Collins really likes about what Reyes has brought to the Mets, and everybody understands the issues, the domestic violence situation that happened in Hawaii, and Reyes has come back to his first organization, the organization for which he played so well for so many years. And the Mets do not have a lot of speed. They're not a team that exhibits a lot of energy, if you will, on the base pass, but Reyes gives them an element of that.
Well, it ignites you, and you see with Trey Turner on the opposite side and what he's done even in just this series. But Jose Reyes does this for a Mets team that's not known for speed, but you put one guy at the top in the beginning of the game, he gets a walk, he gets to third base. I mean, this is just a different element the Mets did not have until they went and got Jose Reyes.
Trey Turner, the kid who's only been up a couple of months, has 20. The Mets have 32 as a team on the year. Reyes leading them with 6. Fastball just outside and a full count.
Well, this ball just misses off the plate away. We've seen Reyes already throw a lot of Lopez already as he touches that one up to 96, but that's just off the plate away. I'd like to see him challenge with that mid-90s at the top of the strike zone. Cespedes' soft spot.
Goes with a changeup, and he gets him swinging for the first out.
This is a perfect location. You saw the pitch before, the fastball. Even though it was a ball, it's in this same window. So he goes back with the changeup, but now he takes 10 miles an hour off of it. And look at where Cespedes is at. He's sitting fastball. He's looking for it. He's just in front of it because that's what the changeup does. It looks and mimics exactly like the fastball, but you pull the string and you get the strikeout.
So now here's Granderson. A huge 2-run single last night in the Mets' 3-1 win. For a guy who had been struggling terribly with runners in scoring position. Granderson had been 0 for his last 22 with the runners in scoring position, and on the season before the hit last night was 2 for 42 with the runners in scoring position and 2 outs. So you can imagine the relief he must have felt when he came up with that 2-run knock last night. Lays off low, ball 2.
Lopez breaking out that changeup on 3-2 to Cespedes is such a good pitch because I promise you, Cespedes as a right-handed hitter isn't accounting for the changeup in that situation. He knows, okay, I'm protecting breaking ball, but fastball. To pull that pitch out in that spot and execute it, that's a big-time pitch by a young pitcher.
Shift on for the Nationals. 3 on the right side. A lot of room on the left side for Granderson. Only Rendon stationed over there. The Nationals threatened in the top of the first. Left the bases loaded. Now the Mets with runners at second and third and 1 out here in the bottom half. Count in Granderson's favor. To left field. Worth will make the catch. Reyes will tag. Throw coming to the plate, not in time, and the Mets have an early lead.
I mean, I can't tell you what that does for a team that's struggled as much as they have in these situations throughout the year. But you find yourself now in a pennant race in September, and you string together these kind of at-bats where you have good base running play, where you have a guy walk, and then you execute there to drive home a run with an out. These are things that ignite you and get a bench feeling good about themselves and get an offense feeling good about themselves.
Here's Wilmer Flores getting the start at second base tonight. We mentioned Neil Walker is done for the year. First year with the Mets, but undergoing back surgery. And will not return, obviously, this season. Flores, who generally gets more playing time against lefties, now becoming a bigger factor. He can play some second. He's played all around the infield. He's found himself at first base a fair bit as well. And this is not a bat to be taken lightly. He's got some pop. .15 home runs on the season for Flores in 286 at-bats. Off the glove of Ramos to the backstop, and jogging to third is Cabrera.
Trying to run this fastball in on the hands of Flores after a really good changeup, and just kind of yanks it and loses it. Ramos off the tip of the glove there. And
second wild pitch this inning issued by Lopez. So runner at third, 2 down, and a 2-1 count on Flores. Ball 3. Like Lugo, Lopez having to exert a lot of energy and throw a lot of pitches here in the first inning. But whereas Lugo got out of it, Lopez not so fortunate. Little pop up into shallow right field. Racing in is Harper to make the catch, and that'll end the inning. The Mets, though, cash in a run and have a 1-0 lead at the end of an inning. The Nationals and the Mets. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN with Jessica Mendoza, Aaron Boone, Buster Olney. I'm Dan Schulman. 1-0. The Mets lead as the second begins with Ryan Zimmerman chopping a ball foul. Zimmerman has not had a typical Ryan Zimmerman kind of season. It's been disrupted a couple of times with injuries, but hitting just .219, 13 home runs. You think if Zimmerman was having his normal year, and if Harper was having anywhere close to the kind of year he had last year, imagine how good of an offensive team this would be. As it is, they're still 4th in the league in runs scored. Nothing's more fun than a souvenir baseball.
True that.
You must have been running around ballparks trying to get as many balls as you could when you were a little kid, although you were lucky enough to be shagging sometimes, not just in the seats. Up high, ball 1, and in and out of the glove of Rivera.
Zimmerman can be a bit of an X factor for this team. Been a very tough season for him, but especially those close to the Nationals organization know that when Zimmerman gets hot, similar to Jay Bruce, he's a guy that can carry a club.
Takes the breaking ball for strike 3.
And the Nationals, with a big lead in the East, kind of have that luxury of doing everything they can to kind of get Ryan Zimmerman going, hoping that he can get it rolling on into October where he can be an impact player.
Yeah, the Nationals are in a unique spot. Maybe the Cubs are the only other team in that kind of a spot. The Nationals are too far behind the Cubs to realistically have any chance of catching them, but the Mets are too far behind them to really have any realistic chance of catching the Nationals. So the Nationals basically know they're going to be the 2 seed, if you will, and will play the National League West Division champion in a division series in all likelihood.
Yeah, and that lead you see right there is a big reason why Max Scherzer is not pitching tonight for the Nationals on his normal 5th day, 4 days rest. They figured, let's give him an extra day since we do have the big lead, especially after winning the Friday night game here against the Mets. I think it made the decision easy for the Nats to say, let's give one of our horses 1 extra day. He'll still make all his starts through the end of the season.
And a strike, 2-1 on Danny Espinosa, the shortstop for the Nationals. Big power guy, 20 home runs on the season. Nobody's gotten more home runs out of the 8th spot in the National League than the Nationals have, and Espinosa is the biggest reason why. The current look he's sporting is a little bit different than the look he was sporting at the beginning of the year when teams took pictures of the players for the scoreboards all around. Now that was Danny Espinosa in March. This is him now, but give it a couple of days and it could be back to that Danny Espinosa.
Or give it a couple hours.
Yeah.
The 7th, 8th inning, sometimes he gets a little shadow going.
His beard comes in a little bit faster than your beard comes in. Is that fair to say?
That is a correct statement. I saw him before the game. I said, oh, freshly shaven. Have a 5 o'clock shadow by 7:45.
You know what? It actually is a little bit different than when we saw him in the clubhouse.
Starting to come through a little.
2 balls, 2 strikes the count. A lot of power, a lot of strikeouts, though, for Espinosa. 139 strikeouts on the season. Driven to deep right field. As we said, a lot of power. Number 21 on the season ties the game.
That ball was undressed. Oh, man.
Well, Seth Lugo wanted to get it in on the hands of Espinosa. You can tell exactly where Rivera set up, but watch it run back over the middle of the plate, and Espinosa just drills it all over it. You see where he gets that ball too, how deep he allows it to get, but had it been located correctly, it would have jammed him. So even a mistake, but way to take advantage of it for Espinosa.
Here's the pitcher, Reynaldo Lopez, a converted catcher, 21st on the season for Espinosa. Lopez was more of a catcher than a pitcher before he signed professionally. He got a pretty good swing, as you can see, as he loops one into center field, a base hit.
See that separation there, foot down. Rivera wanted that pitch in on the hands, but as Jess said, that thing leaks over. And there you see that outstanding power from Espinosa. Great defender at short and a real weapon in that 8-hole, because he can do that right there and up into the second deck here at Citi Field.
So we're tied at 1. Lopez aboard after his first major league hit. Espinosa, number 21 on the season. And back to the top of the order for Trey Turner. Had an infield hit in the first. Pops up the bunt, caught by Rivera for the second out. Here's a look at what's coming up this week, and it's a busy week. Labor Day, hard to believe it's Labor Day tomorrow. Got a doubleheader for you tomorrow on ESPN, beginning with the Cubs and the Brewers at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Then the Cardinals and the reeling Pirates. Boy, do they need to get hot in a hurry. You'll see the Cardinals and Pirates again Wednesday night. Could be a make-or-break series for Pittsburgh. They've fallen back to the 500 mark. The Rangers, the leaders of the American League West, are in Seattle for the late game Wednesday, and then 1 week from tonight, we'll be down in Houston as they take on the Chicago Cubs. Houston finally got a win over Texas tonight. That makes them 3-13 against the Rangers this year. Houston had a lead, almost lost it, but held on for a 7-6 win, a much-needed win for the Astros in the American League wildcard race.
And that kind of ownership, if you will, goes back to last year, where Texas beating up on the Astros last year, especially in the second half, was the difference really in the division and why the Astros were the wild card and the Rangers won the West.
Astros at the moment 2 back of the second wild card spot in the American League. That spot is jointly held by Baltimore, who lost today to the Yankees, and Detroit. The Tigers are playing well. They beat Kansas City today 6-5, and the Tigers and Orioles share that second wild card spot right now.
Justin Upton, a big home run today. He's starting to swing the bat better.
2-run homer in the 8th to give him the lead, and K-Rod save number 38.
And that's a lineup. Holy moly, in Detroit. I mean, there's so much talk about Boston, and even Texas gets a lot of attention, and the Cubs, but Detroit, when all those guys get rolling, obviously Upton, but you think about Miggy and both Martinez, Victor, and JD, that's a scary team to face in the postseason.
Worth got it right off the end of the bat. And that'll be the end. But it's a tie game. Espinosa goes upper deck deep to tie it at 1. Nationals fans in the house here at Citi Field. No doubt many of them have come to see Bryce Harper. Time now for this week's edition of the Mendoza Line, as Jess tells you some things you might not have known about Bryce Harper.
Well, Dan, 3 numbers that are most important to Bryce Harper. 220. And that has been probably the biggest thing for him. His father told him when he was 14, "You are second to none. No one will work harder You're the first to leave the field, last to leave. He has it on his glove before he takes the field. No player or pitcher is better than you. That's the second to none means from those numbers, and that's why when he puts on his cleats, those are the numbers he sees. And his dad gave him a necklace when he was 14 years old. It's got a lot of different pendants on it that mean a lot to him, but you'll see the one, it's so faded. It has 220 on it, but he's worn it every single day since he was 14, so the numbers have faded off, but that's something he has under his jersey. And 3 big numbers when you think about it, the confidence that the way he carries himself, the way he plays the game, and his work ethic, but a lot of that goes back to a theme that he's had since he was 14 years old in that 220.
Of course, became really a public figure about the age of 16 when he appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated, made it to the majors in 19. I think it was about 3 years until he faced a pitcher who was younger than he was, the unanimous MVP last year. I don't know about you guys. I mean, he's a tough guy, but it's kind of cool to see him, you know, having little things between him and his father that still mean a lot to him and that he takes with him every day to the ballpark to remind him of certain things.
And it's kind of that superstition meets, you know, something that really does impact him and influence him. And not only, you know, the necklace and the shoes and the glove, but you guys, he travels with beans, sunflower seeds, and bottle caps because that's how his dad started throwing to him when he was a young 8-year-old kid, to be able to better see the ball. So he'd have a broomstick. He still has it with him. It was here at Citi Field that he travels with. Trey Turner's even jumped in on it. And stuff that, yeah, it's a little bit superstition, but it also helps him believe, hey, you know what? Whether it's hand-eye coordination, better way to see the ball. But a lot of things about him and his game, very confident guy. But it's stuff that he's learned at a young age from his dad that he carries with him, and you can see the necklace right around his neck.
Outside, 3 balls and a strike.
I think the one thing I think of when is, what are all those actually, Jess, the different pendants on there?
The Sunbeam 12 that you see at the top is from his great grandfather, Harvey Harper, who worked in the railroad, and that was somebody that kind of ingrained in him that work ethic. And then you see the 4-leaf clover charm. When he was 5 years old, 6 years old, he'd go with his siblings, and they would go and find 4-leaf clovers, and he'd put them in his back pocket. And that's kind of where he said that confidence started from, because he really believed when he was younger, he'd have it in his back pocket and be like, nobody's better. I got the luck on my side. And obviously he's a confident guy now because he believes in his talent. And there's also some wings on there that his dad had given him, saying, hey, no one's going to fly higher than you will, the goals that you're going to be able to reach.
I think the one thing I noticed being around Harper is you feel this swagger and this feeling that he is driven to not be a great player, but to be the best player. I think that's his expectation, and I think those are just some of the daily reminders that is my expectation, that's my family's expectation of me, and to see him still wearing all those things proudly around his neck.
And he definitely owns it. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that'll say, hey, I have this kind of belief, a necklace that I wear around my neck. But he's got an edge to him too, and it's funny because you see him in the, you know, that kind of borderline cockiness, the way he plays, but you know, when you talk to him, he's so soft-spoken. There's kind of this deeper part to him, whether it's his belief in how he hits. Not a guy that studies a whole lot, someone that just shows up to the game and then he waits till then to tell me who he's going to face, because that's not something he thinks about ahead of time.
And for having a tough season, certainly by the standard he set last year, he's really starting to lock it in, which becomes very scary for the National League.
Jay Bruce on the 10th pitch of the at-bat lines one into right for a base hit.
He becomes very scary if he's swinging the bat this way, but Jay Bruce, this is a big deal. You know, a 10-pitch at-bat, guy struggling, a guy grinding away, trying to endear himself to his new team and his new fan base. Leading off the inning here, again, pennant race, tie game. You grind out a quality at bat and you dump in a swing there or a base hit here on a ball that beats you a little bit, gets you on the handle a little bit. But that's one of those hits that, as he continues to gain a little traction, as he continues to get more and more hits now, that's one of those early in a game at bats that can relax you and lead to some confidence, perhaps later in the game in a big situation.
The batter now, James Loney. first baseman for the Mets. We didn't mention Lucas Duda earlier when we were talking about all the injuries that the Mets have sustained this year. Duda's had a back problem that's kept him out most of the season, but some word that it's possible that he could be back before the end of the season. Now, far from a sure thing, but at least a glimmer of hope that Duda could return. But again, no David Wright, no Neil Walker, no Juan Lagares, no Matt Harvey, and at the moment, no Jacob deGrom or Steven Matz.
And they're still in this. I mean, that is what blows me away. You think about that long list of stars, studs, talent, influencers. They're not in this game, but this team is.
And I think it's worth repeating that when it comes to opposing teams' record, that they have the easiest schedule of any of the contenders fighting for that wild card spot in the month of September. After tonight against these Nationals, where you're not facing Max Scherzer, it's a lot of bottom feeders in the National League and the Minnesota Twins in an interleague series. So, and I think the lineup has enough guys right now in continuity as we look at that schedule. They go to Cincinnati after tonight's game, a tough game tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You know they're going to get there in the middle of the night, but then it's at Braves, the Nationals again, then Twins, Braves, Phillies, Marlins, and Phillies. At 450 combined opponent winning percentage. A chance to make hay in the biggest month of the year.
And guys, on the other hand, the St. Louis Cardinals still have a home-and-home series with the Chicago Cubs. They also have a home-and-home series with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Some of the other wild card contenders also with more difficult schedule than what the Mets are looking at. So we've seen with the Pirates recently that strength of schedule doesn't always matter. You still have to win the games, but it could make a difference.
1-2 the count on Loney. Down and in. Ball 2. Well, here's what Buster was talking about. St. Louis with a more difficult schedule. Part of that is they still have 2 series left with the Cubs, as he mentioned. So 16 of their 27 are against teams 500 or better. The Giants in the first wild card spot, the Cardinals second, and the Mets a game and a half out. The Pirates and the Marlins, a little bit of separation right now between those 2 teams and the Mets, and then up to the Cardinals. Well hit to right field. Harper reaches up and makes the catch for out number 1. Well, the Mets are putting together some good at bats, though.
Harper had a nice recovery on that catch too, and this is the hardest ball to read as an outfielder, the one hit right at you. And Harper's first reaction is he actually froze, but does a nice job recovering, drop step, and that's the key. He doesn't backpedal, he doesn't slide step. He goes right into his run and makes a very difficult catch on a ball hit very hard.
And he didn't panic either. You know, I think he realized he didn't get the jump he wanted, and the ball was hit a little bit harder, but just his head remained very still, very much under control. Turned in a pretty nice play.
Here's the catcher, Rene Rivera, hitting in the 8th spot for the Mets. And a strike. Rivera hitting .225 with 5 home runs on the season. 1-1 your score in the bottom of the 2nd. The Mets got a run in the bottom of the 1st on a sac fly from Curtis Granderson. The Nationals tied it up in the top of the 2nd on a home run from Danny Espinosa.
That caught him.
Yes. Ramos just saved his pitcher a base, though.
Yeah. That was a curveball that didn't go real well, and that bounced about 52 feet, and Ramos just sticks the landing. But if I'm these Mets hitters now, you're this first time through the order, I think one thing Lopez has shown you, obviously he has very good stuff, but he's having a hard time commanding the inside part of the plate to right-handed hitters or the outside part of the plate to left-handed hitters with that fastball.
Swing and a miss, 2-2. He's now thrown 46 pitches to get 4 outs so far. We talked about the Mets being without some of their starting pitchers. The Nationals are without a couple of their starting pitchers in Steven Strasburg and Joe Ross, but both sound like they're getting really close. Strasburg, there's Mike Maddox, the pitching coach for the Nationals. He oversaw a bullpen session that Strasburg threw here today, through 48 pitches. All went well, and it sounds like if he comes out of it okay, he could be back this week, maybe Wednesday, as Lopez strikes out Rivera. Strasburg, of course, who got off to the incredible start, had a cranky elbow recently, but by all accounts threw everything and threw well in the bullpen. And there's a chance that he could be back as early as Wednesday.
And one of the things, the big lead, as we look at Stephen there, the big lead for the Nationals in the National League East is it perhaps allowed the Nationals to be a little more cautious, a little more conservative when the cranky elbow did exist. Okay, let's back you off a little bit and try and get you right, because obviously he becomes so important to this team come October as a guy that can really match up along with Scherzer with any other team's aces.
And a guy on the all underpublicized team, Tanner Roark. He's on that team every year.
Yes, no doubt about it.
Lugo, the batter. Got himself a base hit. Bruce rounding second. And is out at third. Well, as they say, you never want to make the first or third out of the inning at third base, and Bruce just made the third out of the inning at third on the base hit by Lugo. So the inning comes to an end on that note. Rendon with a catch and the tag in time. Between the Nationals and the Mets, the Nationals 79-56, 9.5 up in the National League East. Why have they been so good this year? Well, their starters ERA. Max Scherzer having a great year. They are second in the National League in ERA. Their bullpen is #1 in the league in ERA. They are 4th in the league in offense. And Daniel Murphy's having a crazy good season and is definitely among the contenders for National League MVP. So they're a well-rounded team. They've committed only 61 errors. That's tied for the fewest in the National League, along with the Dodgers. So they can hit, they can catch, they can pitch. They got a lot going for them right now.
Yeah, and I think at the trade deadline, being able to go out and get a guy like Mark Melancon to really solidify now the back end of the bullpen, that closer's role where Melancon has been so good the last few seasons with the Pittsburgh Pirates, I think really just completed this team. I mean, there's not a real weakness now on the team, and I think even more upside offensively once you get Harper rolling, if you can get Zimmerman on track, and with Strasburg due back, and perhaps Ross to impact the rotation. This is a team that, you know, I think we all would acknowledge that the Cubs feel like the best team in the National League. But man, I think the Washington Nationals match up real well with them, potentially in a postseason situation.
Lugo throwing the ball in on the hands of Murphy again, and he gets him to pop up. Murphy retired, and here comes Bryce Harper. As mentioned, the National League MVP a year ago, unanimously so, still just 23 years of age and hot the last 3 weeks. The final numbers will not be what Bryce Harper wants them to be, given how long of a slump that he went through. Hit about 215 for about a 3-month stretch. So just 253 overall. Still some good production, but with him heating up now in the most important time of the season coming, still with a chance to have a major influence on the Nationals' chances the rest of the way.
Oh, watch when he swings, and that's a perfect example right there. Bryce Harper when he struggles versus Bryce Harper when he makes contact. Watch where his balance, watch his lower half. So he takes his hack. This is Harper taking his swing, but watch where his balance takes him. Watch him fall towards that first base dugout on his follow through, and that's where he's taking a lot of that power and contact away.
Stays on this one, but lines it right to Granderson in center.
And Dan, that's been the biggest difference. When he lines out and he's able in his last 2 at-bats stay with the pitch, it's been about him keeping that lower half towards the ball.
I would disagree a little bit in just that I think he's a different animal, and I think that was more about the pitch. That was a ball up, maybe in, that he didn't quite get to, but I think he was also real close to hitting that ball in the upper deck. To your point also, I think what he's starting to do now as he's worked his way out of that funk is he's starting to drive the ball more through the middle of the field the other way. Both contacts tonight, pretty good contacts, a line drive to left, that line drive to center field.
Here's Rendon, who lifts a fly ball into shallow left center. And Cespedes there to end the inning. 3 up, 3 down they go. Welcome back to Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell. Bottom third at Citi Field, the home of the Mets, and it's a 1-1 tie between the Nationals and the Mets in the rubber match of the 3-game series. Top of the order, Reyes, Cabrera, and Cespedes. Rendon in foul territory to make the catch. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell, is brought to you by When the Bow Breaks, in theaters September 9th. Here's Asdrubal Cabrera. At a base hit his first time up as he stays hot, hitting well over 400 since he came off the DL in the middle of August. You know, you talk to Mets fans, and I got a couple of buddies who are Mets fans. I'm sure you guys do too. And to a person, they are, I don't know how they're doing it. I can't understand how they're still in it. And Mets fans are kind of conditioned to expect the worst sometimes, until last year, when everything, you know, when they got all the way to the World Series, fantastic season. But you talk to a Mets fan now, and they're like in semi-disbelief that their team is a game and a half out of a playoff spot with everything that's gone wrong. A screamer into center, and on comes Turner to make the catch. 2 down. Here are some of the things the Mets have dealt with, and although the numbers say their injuries aren't actually that excessive, man, it feels like every day it's something. And key players as well out for long stretches. The offense has been poor just about the entire season. Matt Harvey struggled at the beginning, then was lost for the season with thoracic outlet syndrome. Yet there they are. Now, granted, they're only 4 games over 500, but in today's baseball, that's good enough to keep you in the hunt into September. Cardinals won today, so they were a game and a half ahead of the Mets. The schedule, as Aaron and Buster talked about, on paper is an easier one compared to other contenders, but it figures like it's going to be such a huge key. Are they going to need Lugo and Montero and Gesellman the rest of the way, or will they get DeGrom and Matz back at some point?
I mean, you obviously hope for DeGrom and Matz back, because especially if you get into the postseason, those are the guys that give you a real opportunity at advancing in the postseason. That being said, with the schedule the way it is, with the potential now of the offense, I think even without Matz and DeGrom for the next few weeks, I still think this team has a real good opportunity to get into the postseason. If Matz and DeGrom don't come back, I think it's very difficult for them to advance.
Well, they're getting all they could ever ask for out of Lugo, Gesellman, and Montero.
Yeah.
Off the end of the bat. And it'll drop into no man's land for a base hit for Cespedes.
But look, when you have injuries and attrition that happens throughout the course of the year, you need X factors. You need your system, you know, to step up. You need some guys maybe that you've never heard of, or I've never heard of, or a fan base isn't sure of, to step up if you're going to have a chance to get in October. And Lugo giving his team a chance again tonight.
Here's Granderson, sac fly in the first. They have leaned on this trio, Lugo, Gesellman, and Montero, and they've all acquitted themselves very nicely. Montero will start on Tuesday.
And you think about Lugo, he's a guy who had over a 6 ERA in AAA.
Yeah.
21 games, 14 starts. I mean, a pretty big body of work. Now, granted, it's in Las Vegas in the Pacific Coast League. Very difficult.
High fly ball, deep right field. Harper back, will watch it go. Home run, Granderson.
He has not had the season he's wanted, but look at his swing. When he is going good, when his swing is going well, he can take this pitch down in the zone, drop the barrel, but the bat speed combined with the explosiveness, especially that lower half, when he gets his front foot down and gets his barrel to a place, I mean, off of the sign in the second deck. Big home run. And a big one for him, because we talk about depth, we talk about a lot of different guys needing to get going, some names, some not. Well, he's a name. He is a big one. Someone who was hot for them last year has not been hot for them consistently this year. But this last week and this last series, he's been showing what he can do, especially this last month.
And Mets fans will remember well all the impact at bats that Curtis Granderson had for this team down the stretch. When he's locked in, he's a guy that gets on base and draws walks and does that right there. A big hit last night and now a big homer to give him the lead.
Foul to back just below us. 2-2 the count on Wilmer Flores. So Granderson has driven in all 3 runs tonight for the Mets. And they've got a 3-1 lead in the bottom of the third, trying to keep pace with St. Louis in the wild card chase. Another guy whose numbers are not going to be what he wants them to be at the end of the year, but boy, can he have a big impact the rest of the way. He did last night, and he has tonight. Into right field, a base hit, and maybe more. Cut off shy of the track. Flores on his way to second, and in there standing up.
And we've talked about Lopez really having no command of the inside part of the plate to these righties or the outside part to the lefties. See that ball drift over the heart of the plate and down, and see Flores handle that pitch and drive it through into right center. And even though Bryce Harper with that great arm, as we saw earlier, is able to get to and cut that ball off, Flores able to get into second easy and get another man now into scoring position with 2 outs for Jay Bruce.
Mike Maddox, the pitching coach for the Nationals, out to the mound. Pat on the shoulder as always. You know, one other thing about the Mets, they had an opportunity to completely, not to roll over, but to say, you know what, it's not our year. There's just too much going on. And I don't know how you guys feel. We, all covered the Mets for a while. They don't give up. They don't care what people say about them. They don't care if they're undermanned. And doesn't the manager deserve some of the credit for that? And this can be a tough town, and Terry Collins has drawn his share of criticism. But you want to talk about a guy who bleeds for his team. Wild pitch, and Flores will come to third. Collins went into the dugout a few days ago, and he said, you know what, guys, we've been through a lot. It's September. We're in the race, and I'm proud of you guys. That was the whole meeting. And I don't know, there's just something about him that makes you think he's got something to do with the fact that his teams continue to grind.
Well, he's a no BS guy. So when he has a brief meeting like that and he's saying exactly that, it's not fluff. It's not pump me up. It's definitely, there's truth to it. And I think that's the biggest part of Terry Collins. He knows the game. He's been around the game, yes, but he's so honest. And in a day and age when there is a lot of BS, especially in baseball, he's someone that cuts right to the truth.
Bruce lifts a fly ball left center, but playable for Worth to end the inning. It's a productive one, though, for the Mets. Curtis Granderson strikes again. His second and third RBIs of the night, his 23rd home run of the season, and the Mets have a 2-run lead. Fourth here at Citi Field. Between innings, our Buster Olney visited with Dusty Baker.
Dusty Lopez, 2 outs, 2 strikes in that inning. What changed in your eyes?
Well, it looked like he didn't get the fastball where he wanted to get him. There were a couple pitches there. He's throwing the ball well. It's just that he missed a little location. The second, the double to, double to second baseman. That was a pretty good pitch. That ball was running in on him, and he fought it off to right field. But I tell you, Granderson's been swinging a lot better, and he's dangerous now. So we just got to pitch him a little more carefully.
Bryce Harper, line out to left, line out to center. What do you say to him?
Well, you don't say much because sometimes you get tired of hearing it, hang with him or, keep swinging it. And, we just need him to just keep doing that because they can't catch them all. And I tell you, if he keeps hitting that ball like that, I told him he's about to get hot soon.
Dusty, thanks.
Yeah, Dusty Baker back managing the Washington Nationals. Was not manager the last couple of years. Of course, has had a lot of success over a lot of years with the Giants and the Cubs, and managed Cincinnati most recently. Told us before the game he was never afraid that he wouldn't get back into the game. He didn't think he'd get back into the game. He didn't think anybody would necessarily give him another shot, but he wasn't afraid. He said, hey, if they don't hire me, I'll go home. His son, world famous Darren Baker from back in the day when JT Snow rescued him at home plate. Darren is now 17 and apparently quite a good ball player himself, and Dusty got a chance to be at home as a full-time dad for a couple of years. And then when this opportunity came around, he said that Darren said to him, Dad, you got to take it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You never know if it'll come around again. And Dusty said to Darren, he said, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be saying that to you. So the kid had the perspective and the wisdom
and the foresight.
And Dusty seems like he's in a really good place. He's always chill, of course, but he seems like he's really enjoying this as Zimmerman pops one up for the second out. His managerial career began back in 1993 and included a trip to the World Series with the Giants in 2002, where they lost to the Angels. Then it was on to the Cubs for 4 years, including a trip to the NLCS in 2003. Spent 6 years managing the Cincinnati Reds, and now this year in his first year as the manager of the Washington Nationals. Got over 1,700 wins in his career.
And I think he's on the short list of managers this year that have had a major impact on their team. This is a Nationals team that
Espinosa skies one. Granderson has it, and that's another 3-up, 3-down inning. All of a sudden, 8 in a row set down by Lugo. 3-1 Mets. At the bottom of the fourth, between innings, our Buster Olney visited with Mets manager Terry Collins.
Terry Curtis Granderson with another home run. How much of a difference does that make to your lineup?
Well, when we get him swinging the bat, we're a completely different team. You know, with what he did last year at the top of the lineup, took us to the World Series. So hopefully the last month he gets hot.
Why did you put him behind Cespedes in your lineup?
Well, you know, he's just dangerous, and we're looking for somebody that, when you face right-handed pitching, that, you know, can hit a ball out of the ballpark like that. He was the guy.
Terry, thanks.
Okay.
He was the guy. 2-run single last night, sac fly, and a 2-run homer tonight. And it's 3-1 Mets, looking to stay within a game of the Cardinals for the second wild card spot. Bottom of the order, Loney, Rivera, and Lugo. Loney hit a fly ball to right field his first time up. Up and in from Lopez. A lot of pitches thrown by Lopez. 74 already as he works to his first batter here in the 4th inning. Nationals head home. They'll play Atlanta, open up a series late afternoon tomorrow. The Mets have an early start in Cincinnati tomorrow on the Labor Day holiday. No better feeling.
It's an exciting time to be in New York right now. A lot of Mets fans, a lot of tennis fans. The U.S. Open happening right next door, and just walking around, you can just feel the sports in the air. A lot of excitement.
Yep. National Tennis Center, just a short walk away from Citi Field.
Yeah, a lot of tennis fans in our hotel.
Yep.
From all over the place.
Yep.
I made that walk last night over there to the tennis center after watching the Mets game.
Yeah, you did.
It was fun. Bucket list checked off. Venus Williams.
I got to get on that.
Well, just a few steps away. One of the biggest events in these parts at any point of the year, the U.S. Open. Serena Williams seeking her an open era record 23rd major title. 3 former champs are still alive on the men's side. Rafael Nadal lost in 5 sets earlier today as Loney grounds out. How long did it take you, Jess, to walk from one to the other?
Like 10 minutes. I left literally from leaving Mets Stadium. So you think about getting out of a stadium and getting into another, and you look at all the different courts that are over there. So trying to figure out where to get in.
How many steps was it?
You
Booty's
and your
a
steps.
Steps counter.
Yes, he is.
I was so blown away by how quiet. Being at so many, you know, baseball, football, growing up. I mean, I guess been to maybe a couple tennis matches in my, but I mean, literally people are whispering next to me. I mean, you can't talk.
We'd get kicked. 3 of us get kicked out.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't last.
There was
a
one
set.
guy like yelling to Venus, like, put her away. And I swear they booted him after like 2 minutes. Like, you're not allowed to yell. I think they should change that.
Well, one guy who's over there as part of our broadcast crew, of course, is legendary tennis player John McEnroe, 4-time U.S. Open winner himself, and also a huge Mets fan. And not that long ago, on the 1st of August, when the Yankees were here, John McEnroe, still looking trim and fit as he always does. Watch this pitch. I mean, wow. Give that lefty a contract.
Huh? I mean, a little 3/4. Good whip in there. Get a lefty out. If he brought back that moss, that sweet dew he had with the bandana, he'd be real.
He'd fit in on the Mets rotation, that's for sure.
Liner to short. And that's the inning. End of 4. Mets 3, Nationals 1. here at Citi Field. And Ben Revere is going to come up and pinch hit. 1 for 5 as a pinch hitter this year. He's going to bat for the pitcher, Reynaldo Lopez, who labored through 4 innings, gave up 3 runs through a lot of pitches.
Well, and this is one of the things you'll see a lot of teams do as the rosters expand in September. Obviously, more bullpen options. The Nationals with a number of guys down in the pen. 4 innings, not afraid to go to that bench, knowing got an endless number of arms waiting.
And the new pitcher for the Nationals, when we get to the bottom half of the inning, is going to be a familiar name and face, not in a Washington uniform, but Matt Latos, who started the year with the White Sox. Well-traveled guy. Made 6 starts in the minors for the Nationals in recent weeks. 3 down in the Gulf Coast League, 3 at AAA. Put up some very good numbers, and a September call-up. So Lopez 4 innings, 3 runs as he gets a breakdown of his outing with a Mike Maddox. Revere spanks one on a hop to short. Cabrera spins and fires to get him. We've already had some marquee matchups during the first weekend of the college football season, and tomorrow on ESPN, number 11 Ole Miss and number 4 Florida State, led by Heisman hopeful running back Dalvin Cook. Our coverage begins at 8 o'clock Eastern Time from Orlando, also streaming live on the ESPN app and watch ESPN.
I tell you, Heisman hopeful Christian McCaffrey from Stanford.
I'm really worried about you.
Lost it last year.
You two in a couple of weeks. Each of you went to schools. I'm not sure if I should.
You should worry about me right now.
Yeah, it's you I'm worried about. Yeah. So Jess went to Stanford. Aaron went to USC.
We play each other in 2 weeks.
They play each other in 2 weeks. Aaron was a little reserved at our meeting this morning about how last night's game against Alabama turned out. Although, as he pointed out, midway through the second quarter, they were up 3-0.
So we had that going for us.
What was the final?
A lot to a little.
I wanted him to answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
52-6.
52-6.
So
they just ran out of time.
Just poke for the next couple weeks.
And you know, this charming, funny, easygoing guy. Kind of a different situation when he's watching the Trojans and things aren't going that well. Who do you play next week?
Utah State.
Utah State. Okay. I won't be watching that game with you either.
No, you won't.
No.
You don't really like watching with me.
I don't really like watching with you. You're best. You're best on your own. Yeah. You are stressed and you are stressful.
But he's
That's
not
a good way
afraid
to put
to
it.
poke the cage, you know, early on, talk a little smack,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden his team's losing, and it gets a little ugly.
Doesn't make him unique. Other things make him unique. Meanwhile, Lugo has gotten in a real groove. He has set down 10 in a row since a base hit by Lopez back in the second inning. Jason Worth is the batter. He's 1 for 2. And that got a piece of Rivera.
You saw him shake a couple times there through Rivera. Went to the changeup, something we haven't really seen him do righty on right much this game. Just one of those pitches in the middle of the game that can plant a seed in a hitter's mind. Okay, he's willing to throw that. It's just another pitch that you have to account for. Rivera wants to climb the ladder now with the fastball.
Too high, ball 2. And upstairs again. The count, I believe, is actually now 2 balls and 2 strikes. It was 0-2. It's now 2-2 on Worth.
Yeah, you saw Rivera, both of those pitches wanting them elevated. A good job by Worth of laying off. We've talked about Worth and how comfortable he is with 2 strikes. Already a 2-strike hit tonight there, showing the discipline to lay off.
Curveball stays just a little bit high. Worth between pitches. Never mind, doesn't get out of the box. Doesn't even move at all. Stays right where he is. Now he asks for time. Come on, Jason, work with us. We were just about to say, boy, wouldn't the game You know, wouldn't the slow games move a lot quicker if everybody just stayed in the box like Jason Worth does?
And he got his pitch. A great at bat so far for Worth after falling behind, laying off a couple of difficult pitches to get back in the count. And on a 3-2 count now with 2 outs, and you've got the middle of the order on deck, a 2-run lead for the Mets, you know they're more inclined to give in this situation. They just went fastball away and leaked over the heart of the plate, but enough on it to just get a foul ball.
Popped up into shallow right. And that is now 11 in a row, set down by Seth Lugo, delivering another good start for the New York Mets.
Park for every game. Visit MLB.com/tickets today.
Bottom 5 here at Citi Field. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Mets fans, Islanders fans. And the Mets with a 3-1 lead right now on the strength of a sac fly and a 2-run homer from Curtis Granderson. He's driven in all 3 runs tonight. And if anybody reaches this inning, we'll see Granderson here in the 5th. Reyes, Cabrera, and Cespedes, the top of the order, coming up for the Mets against Matt Latos.
You know, this is an interesting pickup by the Nationals, and talking to Latos before the game, felt like he ironed out some of his issues that he had after a really good start to the season with the Chicago White Sox. Really struggled in the middle, but Dusty Baker, of course, very familiar with him. Some of his best days in Cincinnati. A big presence on the mound, downhill with that fastball, slider split.
He's got a bit of a funk to his windup too, that slight little delay that he gets the ball a little bit behind him, and then it kind of comes out quick.
Pitch for Dusty Baker with Cincinnati in 2012 and 2013 as Reyes pops one up on the infield. Espinosa there.
I mean, a big guy, 6'6", you see, watch how he gets real tall. And when he was at his best, in some of his best years where he had impactful years, stays very tall. It's not a real long stride, but and really over the top. That height really creates a really nice, difficult angle for the hitter when he's on top of his game.
As Drupal Cabrera has singled and flied out. Swings through the fastball.
That's 94 right there. As a starter, he's down around 90, 91 miles an hour typically on average. Perhaps moving into this bullpen role, obviously in some shorter stints, maybe you get a little more on that fastball.
Ronaldo Lopez goes 4 innings, gives up 3 runs on 6 hits tonight. Latos on the bottom of the 5th. One and 2.
There's the split finger. Gets that fastball going downhill. Now he can work the split off, or that's a slider. It's a slider. Just real small downward action, north-south action on that slider.
Two. Down and away with a fastball, full count.
You know, I think part of the reason why Drupal Cabrera has been hot lately too is, Dan, you mentioned his knee injuries and kind of how he's not at 100%. He's probably 75, 80%, but I think it's helped him because it's kind of eliminated the lower half.
Back to the slider to strike him out. Now Yoenis Cespedes.
Cespedes, so successful on balls in the lower half of the zone, and when you think about his power numbers, and these are all the dots are his home runs for this season, but look at where most of them are located. Of course, you're going to see middle, but the rest of them are in the lower part of the zone, and those aren't just fastballs. Those are breaking balls. Those are off speed. So much power from the belt and below.
Well, Latos has enough fastball, wouldn't you think, to try to attack him upstairs?
Yeah, that's not necessarily Latos' strength to work up, but that's how you have to go after Cespedes. You want to attack him up in the strike zone with that fastball and then go with the off-speed pitch that you start in the bottom of the strike zone in his strength and then try and take out so they become chase pitches. And when you see Cespedes struggle, you'll see him at times chasing balls in the dirt. However, when you miss with an off-speed pitch and keep it on the plate, he's deadly.
Off-speed fouled off.
A little curveball there. But the angle and the tilt on that pitch. And there you see Latos try and elevate and kind of shake his head like that's not a real comfortable spot for him to go.
Hung a breaking ball and it's sliced down the right field line, but foul. Mr. Met is in the house and jovial as always. And dabbing.
There he is.
Cespedes had to reach for it, and that's the inning. The Mets go in order, 3-1 Mets at the end of 5, but Daniel Murphy will lead off the inning for the Nationals.
able to explain it in a way that it was like when you hit the ball in the air to right center field, like your batting average goes up, your exit velocity. So that's kind of what we started doing, just trying to hunt pitches that I could, center to the right center field gap in the air.
And you see exactly where he's hit his home runs this season, pulled primarily most of them, and it's not even just pulling the ball, it's the fact that he's getting it in the air, so he's attacking it in a way that allows him to have his power numbers, and this has been the difference with Daniel Murphy. Always been a consistent hitter for average, but the power has come from late last season, carried through all the way through this season.
And it's refreshing to hear hitters talk about pulling the ball in the air, because you always hear, oh, the other way. Yes, that's obviously true, but when you pull the ball in the air, you have to do a lot of things correct. And remember when we were with the Dodgers a few weeks ago and they were talking about trying to get Adrian Gonzalez on track and trying to get him to pull the ball in the air. Pull on the ground, bad, but when you pull in the air, you've got to do a lot of things correct as a hitter.
Absolutely, and for Daniel Murphy, and you credit Kevin Long, and he has credited the Mets hitting coach when he was with them last year, is getting closer to the plate and having that mentality. And you see where he's at. He's not on the plate, but he's closer than he was, and that has allowed him to be able to reach pitches to pull that he wasn't able to before.
That's a big cut for Daniel Murphy right there. Almost came out from under his batting helmet.
And this is him hunting a fastball middle away, and you see where it ends up, and it's up out of the zone. Had that stayed more belt to chest high, that's exactly where he would have hit it, is into that right center field gap, but it ended up being located perfectly well above his barrel.
Breaking ball down and away, 2-2.
As far as him getting closer to the plate, that's a trend we're starting to see with a lot of left-handers. We've seen it with Rizzo getting on the plate. We've seen it with David Ortiz the last couple of years.
Matt Carpenter.
Yeah, and daring a pitcher to say, all right, if you can hit that inside corner 3 times in a row, you tip your cap. But it just opens up the plate, makes you have more coverage and more powerful coverage.
Sends the curveball back into center field, a base hit. And Murphy's now got a hit in all 16 games he's played against the Mets this year.
And of all the things he does, this is what impresses me the most. With 2 strikes, this is a breaking ball down the zone. Rivera wants it in the dirt, but he does a good job of protecting against the fastball. But you see how compact he is. Watch, his heel comes up off the ground. It's a simple stride. He doesn't even stride, but look at his lower half. So simple. And because of that simple, he can see and react. Even though he's protecting against the fastball, he can see the curveball and hit it up the middle for a base hit.
As mentioned, a hit in every game against the Mets this year, hitting over 400 against them. And not only hits, but production. 7 home runs and 21 RBIs in 16 games against the Mets. Now Harper with the ground ball to the right side, and the only play for Flores is on to first. They'll get Harper as Murphy goes to second. So Harper 0 for 3. And now Anthony Rendon, the third baseman for the Nationals, been hit by a pitch and flied out to left. Rivera on the mound talking with Lugo right now. His 4th start as a member of the Mets, and again, all of them have been good ones. His first one was against San Francisco, 6 2/3, 3 earned runs. Then 5 shutout innings at St. Louis, and then 6 innings, 2 runs against Miami. And now 5 1/3, 1 run allowed thus far against Washington. Not bad for a 34th round pick. Activity behind him in the bullpen. Recently acquired Fernando Salas, who was picked up in a deal just a few days ago from the Angels. Experienced guy. It's September, so there are a lot of bodies down in the bullpens. The Mets have 10 relievers on their roster right now. The Nationals have 12. A lot of discussion about the expanded rosters. Every year you hear it. Is it fair? Does it change the game too much? Should it be done when teams can go up to 40 players if they want? And last night, and this is not Dusty Baker's fault, as Rendon lifts a fly ball to left field. 2 down. Dusty Baker used 6 pitchers in an 8-batter span because he could go righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty because it's September.
I think it's something that needs to change. It needs to be addressed, especially nowadays where pitching is there's so many pitching changes, there's so much specialty, there's so much matching up that goes on late in ball games during the regular season. But now you expand the roster so you have all these pitchers, and it just changes the game because you can start matching up effectively really in the 4th, 5th inning. You know, we've seen Bruce Bochy do it. We saw Samardzija come out of the game in the 4th inning a couple starts ago and just match up. Remember when the Boston Red Sox, the year they collapsed before winning their 3rd World Championship down the stretch? I remember being in Baltimore. Baltimore was a struggling team, but they expanded their rosters. Buck Showalter had tons of bullpen guys, so by the middle of the game, he's matching up against David Ortiz. He's matching up. Not only does it add to the length but all that goes into the game, but it's a different game, and I think that's a problem.
And apparently it goes back more than 100 years, expanded rosters. And I tried to do some digging today and asked around. I can't find anybody who knows where or why it started. It seems like it was a reward for minor league players. Hey, you get a chance to go to the big leagues in September. And Terry Collins told us before the game he spent a lot of years in various managing of the minor leagues. He said he loved September call-ups in the minor leagues because he could call a kid into his office and say, kid, you're going to the big leagues. But now in the majors, it's a whole different situation because he looks over to the other side of the field and he sees 12 relievers. And just everything that you've been conditioned to do as a manager all season long, it's different now.
Yep.
Oh, and 2 the count on Ramos. Got him. What a performance by Seth Lugo. 97 miles an hour on that last pitch. And he walks off the mound, having thrown 6 innings, a 3-1 lead for the Mets as they come up for the bottom of the 6th inning. Don't know if he's coming back for more, but he certainly gave field. This is moments ago as Curtis Granderson, who's leading off the inning, comes out of the dugout, heads towards the on-deck circle, and then starts fist pumping some young Mets fans. I mean, how cool is that? Right in the middle of a ball game. One of the nicer guys around baseball, and he just gives you more evidence of that here.
Yeah, Jess was talking about Daniel Murphy and his being close to the plate and just his lower half and the impact that Kevin Long had on him. Well, similarly here with Curtis Granderson, a very quiet approach, just kind of sets that foot down. And while they've been different hitters, Murphy, more of a contact guy, a guy who puts the ball in play. Granderson's strength has been discipline of the strike zone and being able to work counts, walk, but then hit for the power, being right on top of that plate, some of that power that we saw earlier tonight.
Earlier tonight, his 23rd home run on the season, 5 RBIs in his last 2 games. In the air to center. And Turner is there to make the catch. Well, talking about the home run, let's show it to you. It's our greater coverage of baseball play of the game, brought to you by T-Mobile.
Granderson is a minimalist as well. Similar to Murphy, he just gets that front foot up and down, and because of that, he's in a position to be able to hit balls, especially that one in the lower half of the zone. So explosive, as you mentioned, with his lower half. But you can tell that he's also been worked with the similar hitting coach, even though Granderson's had a long career with a lot of different coaches, but very minimal movement with that lower half, which allows both him and Murphy to see the ball very well.
Here's Wilmer Flores, 1 for 2, flied out and doubled. And takes the breaking ball outside, a ball and a strike. On the appeal, he went around. 1 and 2. Salas continues to throw in the pen for the Mets, so it looks like Lugo's night may be done. Salas at the least is ready if he's needed quickly in the top of the 7th. One, 2 again. Ripped into left field. Second hit of the night for Flores. Play Ball is MLB's initiative to inspire all forms of baseball and softball participation, making opportunities to play available and fun for everyone. To learn more, go to playball.org. Mets 3, Nationals 1. And here's Jay Bruce. A base hit and a fly ball tonight. As much as he has struggled as a Met, and he has, he's 7 for his last 17 right now. That covers the last 4 games plus tonight. 28 home runs, 88 RBIs on the season. And the Mets go to Cincinnati tomorrow. So maybe getting back to familiar territory might help him a little bit. Terry Collins sure hopes so.
Again, because he knows the potential impact that Bruce is when he's hot. Not only the production he gives you by hitting the ball out of the ballpark, driving in runs, but then all of a sudden the potential now to hit him behind Cespedes and now potentially impact some pitches Cespedes can potentially get over the final month.
Hits it well to left center. Turner and Worth giving chase. It's gone. Opposite field home run, Jay Bruce.
So Jay Bruce at base hit in his first time. Looks like he gets a hanging breaking ball. That pitch is off the plate away, but this just shows the power that Jay Bruce is capable of when he's right. That ball's off the plate but up. And in his last at bat, he hit a similar pitch to deep left center for a fly out. This time he's able to ride it out to left center and pad the Met lead. Kevin Long and the Mets excited about that because they know, again, the potential impact that Jay Bruce can have on this team when he's right offensively.
A franchise record 97 home runs at home. The original record was set back at Shea, not here at Citi Field. And no team has relied on the home run for offense as much this year as the Mets have. 4 of the 5 runs tonight. There's a base hit for Loney. 53% of the runs the Mets have scored this year have come via the home run. If that holds up, it would be the 3rd highest percentage in Major League history. Last night they picked up a win without a home run, just the 10th time that has happened on the season.
But I also like how this game got started off for the Mets. It wasn't with the home run. Yes, that's how they've gotten their run production the last 2 times, but it started off with the speed of Jose Reyes. He got on with a walk. He's able to move over, score on a sacrifice fly, and I feel like that's the dimension that this Mets team was missing. So yes, they score a lot of runs off of the home run, but how do you take it to a next level to win more ball games? Well, you need to have the speed element to be able to make more contact, and I think that's been the difference for this Mets team the last month.
Activity now in the Nationals pen. Left-hander Sean Burnett, right-hander Trevor Gott. He's cracking up David Wright. David Wright, of course, has been out most of the season. A neck injury, but Jay Bruce has him going right now.
Oh, there's a lot of exhaling going on right now with Jay Bruce. As you touched on, starting to swing the bat better his last few times out. Getting that hit early tonight. And then showing the power can go a long way, and just helping him to relax and get comfortable and get back to being an impact player.
Rene Rivera, the batter, he struck out in both at bats tonight. And for what it's worth, Seth Lugo is in the on-deck circle right now. Low with a fastball, 2-1.
And you know, I'll say I've been in Jay Bruce's shoes before, where you've spent your entire career in one place, where it's not. You're in a comfort zone in a city, in a town, in a organization, you know, the same parking spot all the time, the same people you greet going into the ballpark all the time. You hit off the same batting practice pitcher every day. You have your routine, and then all of a sudden you up and move, and it's your family going to a new city, a new organization, all the things away from the field to help get you settled in. And then you get out of the gates a little bit slow, and you can really start to press. And it's these little victories, a base hit in your first at bat, to help get you rolling, take a little bit of the pressure off, and then your talent can take over.
Rivera strikes out for the 3rd time tonight, unhappy about the call, and Lugo will come to the plate. And he gets a big round of applause. Runner at first, Loney, 2 down in the inning. The Mets now up 5-1.
Boney, one other point on Jay Bruce. There was like a 14th-month run-up to his trade, because we thought he'd be traded last summer. He wasn't. He was almost traded to Toronto in the spring. That deal was killed. You have to believe that that had to have fed into some anxiety.
I mean, there's a long list of really talented players who have struggled either after being traded or signing as a free agent with a new team. And this kind of a situation where you move from a team that's not in a race to a team that is in a race and is desperately counting on you for production right off the bat.
And an immediate market that's going to jump all over you if you're not getting the job done.
Lugo sends a fly ball left field, deep but playable for Worth, and the inning is over. But Jay Bruce launches one, his 29th home run of the season, opposite field power, and at the end of 6, big smiles, Mets up 5-1. Baseball on ESPN, presented by Taco Bell. Watch the drive to the pennant with MLB.TV Premium. Watch every out-of-market game live in HD on more than 400 supported devices and enjoy a free subscription to At-Bat Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.TV. We go top 7 here at Citi Field. Dan Shulman, Aaron Boone, Jessica Mendoza, Buster Olney, and the New York Mets have a 5-1 lead on the Washington Nationals. Seth Lugo, who has been cruising since the first couple of innings, works into the 7th inning. He faces the bottom third of the lineup: Ryan Zimmerman, Danny Espinosa, and then no doubt a pinch hitter in the pitcher spot. Zimmerman a strikeout and a pop-up. Just outside.
Lugo's been doing a good job tonight locating his fastball, not being very predictable, whether it's his 2-seam, his 4-seam, whether it's in, out.
He's getting more swings and misses late in the game than he got early in the game. Every start the Mets can get out of a Lugo or a Gazelman or a Montero, every decent to better than decent outing they can get is huge for them at this point of the season.
And what's been impressive about Lugo tonight, it's been about the fastball. I mean, you know, everyone talks about his curveball, and that curveball being his best pitch, and he has definitely featured it a little bit tonight, but it's been more about spotting the fastball. As Jess said, the 2-seam, at times riding up that 4-seam fastball that we saw as high as 97 to end last inning.
Right back up the middle, a base hit.
Well, it's been about his 2-seam command, especially early, and he got a lot of run on it, swing and miss with Murphy. the lefties, Harper, and you'll see that late action even into righties with that two-seamer. He'll also get sink on it, low in the zone, being able to locate the fastball, but also get that late movement and then elevate when he needs to. 97, so you saw the variance, 92 all the way up to 97, but the location, a little bit of run sink, and then elevate when he has to. And that's where he's gotten the swing and misses.
Here's Danny Espinosa, who homered back in the second for the only run of the night for the Nationals. Chris Heisey on deck in the pitcher spot. Thinking about bunting his way aboard.
I love it.
Yeah, and what you've heard about Reyes as a third baseman is the play that he has the most difficult time with is when he's charging a ball hit in front of him, trying to barehand it. That one has been a struggle for him.
Well, and there we saw him just now move in, but he was conceding the bunt all the way. And with the Nationals down 4 runs here in the 7th inning, a good idea by Espinosa, just didn't execute on it. Sometimes when that bunt is so open and so there, and with Reyes playing back, you can almost be a little more deliberate with it. Just make sure you get it down in that direction, and you got yourself a hit. Now, if he tried, it'd have to be a little more fine with Reyes moving in.
Fouled off, 2-2. .95 pitches thrown by Lugo as he works here into the 7th inning. Swing and a miss to get him. Well, so much going on around baseball impacting the pennant races as we are into the final month of the regular season, and the LA Dodgers got some very good news. Clayton Kershaw is scheduled to come off the DL and pitch Friday against the Marlins. The Dodgers are hot. They beat the Padres again today. Eduardo Rodriguez had a no-hitter through 7 2/3, and then Chris Davis walked it off against Craig Kimbrell as Oakland beats Boston 1-0 in the 9th. The base hit by Davis scoring the only run of the game. And Jason Hayward, who's had a very tough year at the plate, drives in all 3 runs, including the game-winning hit. The Cubs got a run in the 9th on a Hayward base hit, got a run in the 13th to win it on a Hayward base hit. As the Cubs go back to 40 games over 500. Pinch hitter Chris Heisey drops a bunt down, and he gets thrown out up to second on the play. 2 down. The Dodger win and the Giants loss now gives the Dodgers a 3-game lead in the National League West, and they're getting Kershaw back, and Rich Hill made a good start for them. The blister appears to be okay. Guys are swinging the bats well. Dodgers are looking really dangerous right now.
And everything that we've said about the Mets as far as having a ton of injuries, understanding their depth, still being in it. The LA Dodgers, I feel like, are the example for the rest of baseball of having so many different guys go down, including arguably the best player in baseball, Clayton Kershaw, and how well they have done despite that. Not just their pitchers, but position players. I mean, you name one, they've lost them, and they're still winning.
Well, the Dodgers put a lot of their resources into building depth. And a lot of us, even myself included, have been critical of that. But all the injuries that they've sustained, it's paid off a little bit for them right now as they lead the West.
The only other divisional race that's really close, and is even closer than the NL West now, is the American League East. You saw that Boston lost. The Blue Jays got a late home run from Russell Martin today to salvage the final game of the series against Tampa Bay. So they're a game up on Boston. Baltimore lost to the Yankees. So the Orioles are now 3 games back in the East. Trey Turner 0-2. Crowd on its feet here at Citi Field in support of Seth Lugo. Curveball fouled off.
He's not joking around. Curveball after curveball after curveball to finish here.
An even 100 pitches, the bullpen ready if needed. Lugo is potentially a pitch away from the biggest ovation of his life. Got him. Seth Lugo having a terrific night for the Mets tonight. 7 strong innings. Struck out the last batter he faced in the 7th, Mr. and Mrs. Met, entertaining the crowd here. 5-1 the Mets lead going to the bottom of the 7th. The Mets trying to get back within a game of the Cardinals for the 2nd wild card spot in the National League. Good action tonight and lots more good action coming up this week. A busy week on the MLB calendar, including a Labor Day doubleheader that sees the Cubs take on the Brewers and then the Cardinals and the Pirates tomorrow afternoon. Wednesday night again the Cardinals and Pirates as game 1 of a doubleheader. The Rangers and the Mariners in the 2nd game, and then we'll be at Minute Maid Park 1 week from tonight in Houston as the Astros host the Cubs.
Well, Trevor got one of those Nationals summoned from AAA when the rosters expand, providing some bullpen depth for the Nationals. Seen time in the big leagues with the Angels. Fastball that he will get up there in the mid-90s. You see there 95 right out of the gate. Curveball.
Jose Reyes leads off the inning. Reyes tonight has walked and scored and popped up twice. He'll be followed by Asdrubal Cabrera and then Yoenis Cespedes. The road trip the Mets start tomorrow takes them to Cincinnati, then to Atlanta, and then to Washington to play the Nationals again. The Nationals basically trying to stay sharp, stay healthy, get healthier in certain cases, getting Strasburg and Ross back, they hope, and head into the postseason with some momentum. Chopper over the mound. Espinosa, one down. And you think about the possibility, if Strasburg's healthy, of Scherzer, Strasburg, Roark. Max Scherzer, whose start was pushed back to tomorrow, he might win the Cy Young this year. He's had an extraordinary season, 238 strikeouts, ERA under 3. Gio Gonzalez, who you see saluting somebody in the dugout there, he's probably the number 4 guy at this point. And if Joe Ross is your 5, you got a pretty good rotation.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that all the awards we talk about, the Cy Youngs, the MVPs, as well as the pennant races, these awards are going to come down to these final months, this final month in many cases as well. And Scherzer right in that mix for Cy Young. Roark perhaps even on the outskirts of that conversation right now, but been excellent as well.
Kyle Hendricks, when you talk about the Cubs, and you mentioned earlier how well they match up, hasn't been the cliche aces necessarily. Obviously Max Scherzer, yes, but Tanner Roark, a guy that you didn't expect coming into the season to have the year that he has had, really help lift this rotation, especially when guys went down. And Kyle Hendricks, who's now arguably the ace of that staff when you got Arrieta, Lester, and Lackey.
What if Kershaw comes back and has 4 or 5 good starts?
Does he get back into the conversation? I mean, he was the conversation before he got hurt. Can you be a starter and throw, say, 140, 150 innings and win the Cy Young Award?
Normally I would say no, but the year that Kershaw was having, for a pitcher who is already going to go down as one of the greatest ever, was having the best season ever. And when you look at his numbers, if he did somehow miraculously continue that when he comes back, he's at least in the conversation.
And again, the Dodgers have announced he is expected to come off the disabled list and start Friday against the Marlins. Last pitched on June the 26th.
He's at 121 innings right now. So if he made, what, 4 or 5 starts? 4? It'd be tough to get to 150 innings.
What's he at right now? 121?
121.
So be tough to get to 150. You wouldn't think he's got 110 pitches in him the first time back, but with Clayton Kershaw, you never know. Fly ball to right field, and that's all. 3 up, 3 down. The Mets go. Some big hitters coming up for the Nationals in the 8th. ESPN is presented by Taco Bell's new Cheesy Core Burritos and in part by Otesla. Learn more at otesla.com and Fidelity Investments. Nice night here in New York. We are at Citi Field, and the Mets are enjoying a 5-1 lead as the Nationals come up at the top of the 8th inning. Huge game for the Mets, of course. And out of the bullpen comes right-hander Addison Reed, who has done a very good job as the primary setup man for the Mets this season.
He really has. He came over late last season in a trade with the Diamondbacks. Their former closer has done a really nice job setting up a whip below 1, an ERA below 2, fastball slider. Fastball typically in the low 90s. We'll get some run on that pitch, a little cut action at times, but been a valuable member of that bullpen in that 8th inning role.
Worth, Murphy, and Harper. Worth 1 for 3. If you're into holds, and if you're Terry Collins, you certainly are, because that 8th inning is critically important. Addison Reed leads the majors with 32 holds. That means 32 times he has come into the game to protect the lead, and 32 times, well, not all 32, but 32 times he has come in with a lead, and that lead has still existed when he has left the game. And it's not the kind of thing you see, you know, online everywhere or in the box score. You do see a little H beside it. It's become something that is more valued. It used to be a game of complete games, and then it became a starter and closer game. But now those outs in the 7th and 8th innings, they're as big and as necessary as outs in any inning in the ballgame. And Reed's one of the better ones. Just missed. Past a diving Cabrera. That's a base hit for Worth. Now Daniel Murphy.
We'll take a look at the Daniel Murphy hit chart as he gets his new welcome that he now receives at Citi Field, a steady plethora of boos. But we look at his home runs this season, how good of a high ball hitter he is from a power standpoint. Not typical for a left-handed hitter, but as Jess has talked about, just such a simple, small approach with that lower half, short swing, and the ability to make contact. He has been a tough customer on pitches and mistakes up in the strike zone. Not something you see always from lefties.
At least 1 hit in all 16 games for versus the Mets, but watch how quiet he is. Minimal movement. And this is something you just don't see. He's almost got that old school way of hitting, because now you see the high leg kicks. You see a lot of just movement, whether it's your hands, your lower half. Not that that's bad, but this is something that's rare now.
Fly ball to left, hit pretty well, and Cespedes tracks it down deep in the corner. Well, Murphy's had a great year. A number of guys in the National League have had great seasons. Is Daniel Murphy the front runner for the National League MVP, or some of these other guys, or at least one of these other guys ahead of him in your minds?
Who's the most valuable player to their team? If that's the question that's asked, because it's confusing a lot of times when you get into discussion. Who's the best player? Who's the most valuable? Daniel Murphy is the most valuable player to this Nationals team, more than Chris Bryant is to the Cubs, Anthony Rizzo, I would argue.
in favor of Murphy.
In favor of Murphy.
Yeah, you wonder, although the Nationals have a very healthy lead in their division, because the Cubs have just blown away the competition, will maybe Bryant and Rizzo suffer a little bit, because some voters might say, well, they'd still be a great team even without one of those guys. And I don't think that's necessarily fair to them, because they're having great years. Last year's MVP at the plate right now, and his team wasn't a playoff team, but he was just so good. So much better than everybody else. He won it easily. Booney, who do you like?
Chris Bryant is the most valuable player right now.
I agree with you.
I think there's still guys that can win it, because I think it's close enough. I think there's, 2, 3, 4 maybe guys in the mix still. Certainly Murphy is one of them, but I think it's Chris Bryant right now.
I'm not sure enough attention gets paid to what his defensive versatility has allowed Joe Maddon to do. I mean, his offensive numbers are great. Everybody on that list has great offensive numbers, but the fact that he can comfortably play at least 3 positions, and he's not the only guy on that team who does it, but it just feeds into everything Joe Maddon loves to do with his ball club.
Well, it allows Javier Baez to get on the field, who is an impact defender when he's on the field. So whether Baez is playing third or second, the fact that one of your star players in Chris Bryant not only has the willingness to move around, but the ability and the versatility and the athleticism to move around to allow another outstanding player to impact your lineup. Oh.
Buster, what do you think? National League MVP.
Yeah, I would pick Chris Bryant. I think he's going to win the award, but I do think that if you look at non-Cubs, and I agree with you, if you look at the history of MVP voting, a lot of times the guys on these runaway teams get penalized for that. The best player in the National League and wins above replacement non-Cub is Corey Seager, and it's not close.
Yep.
Well, I like his chances in Rookie of the Year. I think he's got a fighting chance to win that one. Fly ball to left. 2 down.
And we know Buster's, of course, a little biased on the Seager front, being that they're family and all.
Full disclosure. Yeah. Buster found out, for those who don't know, Buster found out recently, just a few weeks ago, that
look at
he's actually cousins with Kyle and Corey, right?
Allegedly. That's the information that I was told, and Kyle said he'd heard that too, and I was actually just on vacation in upstate New York, and I had relatives confirm it for me.
Wow. We laughed about it, but Thanksgiving.
I'm not laughing about it.
You've had a bit of a strut in your step ever since.
Let's just say they get mentioned on the podcast a lot more these days.
Anthony Rendon. 5-1 Mets, top 8. And a swing and a miss, 2-1. Seth Lugo, 7 innings tonight, gives up a run on 6 hits, didn't walk a batter, hit 1, that was Rendon, and struck out 4 in his 4th start with the Mets, and it was a good one, to say the least. One name we should mention before it gets too late, with all the injuries and all the young pitchers and all the guys filling in, Bartolo Colon, 43-year-old Bartolo Colon has not missed a start this year for the New York Mets and is 12-7 with a 3.35 ERA. Poked into right field. That'll get down for a base hit. Worth up to second.
We talked about that with Rendon, just how hot he's been the last several months, hitting in that position in the 5-hole behind Bryce Harper. Now, we talked about how good he is in RBI situations of using the whole field here, just trying to get on base to give the Nationals a chance to climb back in. With 2 strikes, Addison Reed makes the pitch he wants, but the plate coverage, just a little flick of the wrist on a ball in the corner or maybe just off the corner, able to dump it into right field.
So Dan Warthen back out to the mound, in part to talk to Reed and in part to give Juris Familia, the major league leader in saves with 45, a chance to get loose just in case Terry Collins decides he wants him here in the 8th inning. Wilson Ramos is the batter. He's 0 for 3. The Nationals are 0 for 6 tonight with runners in scoring position. Down the right field line. Trouble if it's fair, but it is foul.
Ramos hit that ball well, but just too much slice on it as you see it ricochet off the wall out there.
Now to play 0-2.
You know, and with as far as Wilson Ramos is off the plate, I think what he can do a really good job of is his plate coverage on pitches away. In the last 2 foul balls, at least wasting them now. Driving the first foul ball, but you see the distance that he has, especially with that front foot, to where that outside part of the plate is.
Up and away, and Ramos wouldn't bite.
What stands out about Reed here is, even though he's given up a couple hits in this inning, his command to the edges is very good. And one of the strengths and one of the reasons he's had such a great season is his ability to keep the ball in the ballpark. Just 3 home runs allowed and 63 2/3 coming in. And that's because he commands the edges very well.
If Ramos were to reach somehow, looks like Familia's ready, and Terry Collins might make the move if just one more man reaches. 23 pitches already thrown by Reed here this inning. 2 men on, 2 men out. And again the 1-2 fouled off. Commanded the edge pretty well on that pitch, and Ramos did a good job to get a piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you command it, like Reed is showing, even a night to where he's technically struggling tonight, having given up a couple hits in this inning, you force teams to string hits together because these are in places where guys can't do a lot of damage with them.
If he can get his slider going and get the swing and miss at this point in the inning.
Just missed.
And how about the bat that Ramos is having? I mean, wasting so many pitches that are away, fouling them off, and then this take, that's close. He could have gotten rung up, but it is a ball. It's low, it's away. Good hold.
Ramos called out on the pitch that got under his skin back in the first inning. Reed with a big strikeout as the Nationals leave a couple of men on in the 8th. And the Mets still have the lead. Going bottom 8 at Citi Field. Reed and the Mets up 5-1. City Field, and a real festive mood right now. Seth Lugo is a big part of the reason. Last night in a game the Mets won, Robert Gsellman filling in, another rookie and doing a really nice job, and the Replace Mets, a nickname for this duo, and look at the job they have done as starters the last 2 nights against Washington. So Buster Olney has been online, as he's wont to do during the ball game, and sent out a tweet to his gazillion followers to ask for some nicknames for the guys who are filling in so well as members of the Mets. We'll get to Buster in that momentarily as we go bottom 8. Curtis Granderson, who has homered tonight, he's driven in 3 runs in all, faces a new pitcher, left-hander Matt Grace, and he almost hits him with the first pitch that he throws.
Well, Matt Grace, another guy called up from AAA Syracuse to provide some depth in that bullpen. Fastball slider change. And I think you said a gazillion followers. I think it's a bajillion. That's what he has.
My bad.
Yeah, I think he's up to a bajillion now.
Worth will make the catch. That ball slicing away from him as Granderson is retired. Buster, what did your followers have to say about this?
Oh, and of course, a lot of them are Mets fans who've been inspired through the years by a lot of nicknames, the Amazing Mets, Generation K, Doc, the whole thing. So some of the suggestions, a few good Mets, a not a Mets, LGM, which was working up the first letter of each of the 3 starting pitchers, plus Let's Go Mets, the Metronomes, but I like to replace Mets.
Will that be in your column tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Along with Out of the Blue Men group.
1 batter, 1 out for Grace. That's all for him. 5-1 Mets. We'll be back after this. Follow the September pennant races and the postseason is with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. Enjoy game day, live game video highlights, StatCast, news, and more. Get MLB.com at bat on your favorite device now. Crowd of better than 30,000 here at Citi Field tonight, and they're having fun. Mets are up 5-1, bottom 8, as right-hander Rafael Martin comes into the game for Washington.
Another one recently called up from AAA. Fastball slider change.
And there's a left-hander, Sean Burnett, is up. That's Melanson just getting some work in. Burnett may be coming in to face Jay Bruce. We're going to find out before long. As Flores grounds out for the second out. And here comes Dusty again. So 3 batters in the inning and 3 pitchers. September baseball. Burnett to face Bruce when we come back. Brought to you by Quicken Loans.
What Jay Bruce did a good job of tonight, all night in all of his at-bats, as he really let the ball get deep. Allowed him to drive it out for the home run. He had the fly out, but drove it hard. His second at-bat, had the base hit, his first at-bat, but that was probably the biggest difference for him coming over to the Mets early on. It was way out in front. His timing was off, and tonight he's shown his ability to be a lot more patient.
Sean Burnett, veteran left-hander, is into the game. Guy with the Nationals back in 2009 through 2012. Missed all of last year recovering from Tommy John surgery.
Fastball sliders had some really nice years in the big leagues with the Pirates, with the Nationals, now back with them, and chance to impact the pennant race as the Nationals continue to add depth down there in September.
A good night for Jay Bruce. 2 hits, including the home run.
Wow, that stride foot looks like it's going right at Jay Bruce. Serious crossfire he's got.
Slider fouled back.
This is where the deception comes, and a great angle to see it from. Watch where his stride foot lands and then him come across his body. Bruce fouls off the pitch.
One hopper to the mound, and the inning is over. We will go to the 9th. The Mets 3 outs away from a win. Busy week on the MLB calendar. A Labor Day doubleheader tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern time. The Cubs and the Brewers, and the Cardinals and the Pirates in a big series. You can see those same two teams again in the first game of the Wednesday night doubleheader. Texas and Seattle in the late game. And we will be in Houston 1 week from tonight as the Astros host the Cubs. Changes for the Mets going to the ninth. Alejandro Diaz's in center field now. Curtis Granderson is out of the game, and the new pitcher for the Mets is their closer, Juris Familia. Non-save situation, but it's September. Every game means so much. Nothing can be left to chance. So Terry Collins goes to his best with a 4-run lead.
45 saves after 43 last year. And you hear the term bowling ball a lot. It's going to be mid-upper 90s with some serious action down in the strike zone. And while he's given up some hits and allowed some base runners this year via the walk and hit, he, even more so than Addison Reed, as we talked about, does an excellent job of keeping the ball in the ballpark because of that downward action he gets. Just 1 home run allowed in just over 63 innings of work.
We've mentioned it a few times tonight, but it's the big theme of the evening as the Mets try to keep pace with the Cardinals. Cardinals won today. The other teams you see on this graphic, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, and Miami, all lost today. So this has a chance to be a very lucrative day and night for the Cardinals and the Mets. Mets trying to get back within a game of St. Louis.
We get to do that game, so there's a lot of interest, even the way that we're talking. You know, who's going to host, which team's going to have it, and because it's so close, you really believe it's going to come down to that last week. Who the 2 wild card teams are going to be.
Boy, Pittsburgh got shut out today by Milwaukee 10-0. The Brewers just swept the Pirates. 1-2 swing and a miss. Overpowered him. And again, looking ahead, here is the Mets schedule. They've got 1 more series left with the Nationals. They will play the Marlins as well, but as you can see, they play some teams. The Braves in both cities, the Phillies in both cities. They play the Twins, who have not had a good year. They play the Reds, who have not had a good year. On paper, it is the easiest, and you hate to use that word even, but it is the easiest schedule remaining for any contending team. But say that to any manager, and he'll give you 5 examples in 5 seconds of series they did not play well against teams who were down on their luck during a given season. So they won't overlook anybody. This would make it 11 wins in their last 15 games for the Mets. Espinosa homered in the second, is also flied out and struck out. Top end of the zone, 1-1. It's a lively bunch tonight. It's not a tennis crowd.
Look at the slider from Familia. We've seen the high 90s. There you see that slider, just that downward action at 94 miles an hour. Espinosa over the top.
Two down.
And you know, this fan base, always knowledgeable, always passionate. They understand where they are in the standings and the opportunity that this team has, especially considering, as we've talked about, all that's gone seemingly wrong this year and all the issues they've had to deal with. They're in a position to go make a run for the playoffs in this final month.
Sports Center comes your way at the conclusion of the game. Nationals fans not quite as rowdy as the Mets fans are here tonight. Brian Goodwin is the pinch hitter. An outfielder. who made his major league debut just about a month ago, August the 6th. Hit .280, has some speed, 15 steals, 14 homers, so a little pop, a little speed. His numbers at AAA Syracuse this year. That's a fair ball. It'll kick back away from Bruce, who was about ready to chase it into the corner, and it'll be a double for Goodwin.
Goodwin with some quick hands. Does a good job of getting to this fastball, pulling it down the line just barely too, and he gets a lucky bounce right off the corner there. He thought about going to third. Smartly led up for the double.
Now, obviously, with 2 outs here, Trey Turner at the plate, his run doesn't mean nothing. He's just trying to extend this inning. And again, Jose Reyes way back at third base. We saw him try it before when he popped the bunt up, but if he drops one down, it's there for the taking.
If the Nationals can get the next 2 men on, Turner and Worth, they will get Murphy to the plate as the potential tying run. But they're facing one of the toughest closers in the game in Juris Familia. Fouled off, 1-1, and ouch.
Well, this is what Familia can do to you with that heavy, heavy sinker. Many a right-hand hitters have done this, where they just pound it right into the ground on the instep there.
Murphy hoping for a shot. One and two.
That was almost a 2-strike swing that Trey Turner just had instead of a 1-1. Throwing his hands just to foul off the ball.
In the air to shallow center field. This should do it. And it does. The Mets take 2 out of 3. They've won 11 of their last 15, and they are still just 1 game out of a playoff spot, a game back of the Cardinals for the second wild card spot of the National League. Seth Lugo with 7 terrific innings. Curtis Granderson and Jay Bruce each hit 2-run homers, and the Mets beat the Nationals 5-1 here at Citi Field. Our next MLB telecast tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. The Cubs and the Brewers. The final score from Citi Field: the Mets 5 and the Nationals 1. For Aaron Boone, Jessica Mendoza, and Buster Olney, I'm Dan Schulman saying so long from New York. SportsCenter is next.